Hi, welcome everyone to the Women's History Month interview series for MMPC. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to ask you, Dr. Kennedy, if you can just state your name, the institution that you're connected to, and your affiliation with the MMPC.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you for doing this. My name is Lucy Kennedy. I'm a veterinarian at University of Michigan in the Unit for Laboratory Animal Medicine, and I am also the director of the Animal Corps on University of Michigan's core of the MMPC grant, and I run our germ-free mouse facility here as well, which is also part of our MMPC service here at U of M.
Thank you. You are busy. You're very busy.
Many hats.
So our first question today is, were research, science, and academia modeled for you coming up in your career or just even in school? Was it modeled for you to give you the belief that you could be successful in those particular fields and in the field that you're currently in?
I would say yes. I was very lucky in my journey to get to this point. I had a very scientific family. My dad worked for NASA for 30 years. He was a rocket scientist. And I had two sisters, and my parents basically told us that we could do whatever we wanted, that the world was ours. And all three of us went into different scientific niches that are very different from each other. But even in in undergrad, I was in classes that my professors were really supportive of me, learning how to run a lab and learning how to do benchtop science and even volunteering to do, some parts of research studies, even if it's just pouring culture plates or whatever, if it's the grunt work that builds the foundation so that you know how to go from there. And then I applied to veterinary school when I was an undergrad, and I didn't get into it the first time, which is very common for veterinary school. And one of my research professors that was my, biology professor in undergrad, hooked me up with a lab studying Helicobacter pylori actually here at U of M. And so I got my first job as a research assistant and, spent a few years doing that before I went back to vet school. So pretty much the whole time, and the PI that I worked for here at U of M in my first job she is retired now, and she's a boarded veterinary pathologist who had a PhD studying Helicobacter and also started the germ-free corps that I now run. That was back in 2004. So, these were the people that were modeling this for me the whole time. And I, to be honest, felt like this path was for me and I could do it throughout the whole process. So I know that was very, very lucky and very privileged, honestly.
I love this. First, the fact that you grew up with a rocket scientist as a father. I mean, I could only imagine the level of curiosity that was kind of fostered in your home to, lead you to where you currently are. And even having someone, and you said it was a woman who was in the role that you're currently in, was a mentor to you. Just even having that representation, I can only imagine also just gave you that foundation to believe no, I can do this and I can be very successful in this role. So that's really amazing. What role has working with or for the MMPC played in your career thus far?
It's actually really a positive role for me because I am not, I don't have a PhD. I'm not a primary researcher. I don't run a lab. I don't have to write grants most of the time. And when you are a lab animal vet, we tell people coming into this field that laboratory animal medicine, which is a specialized field of veterinary medicine, so we are our own board specialty, you really have four different roles. You take care of the animals, you have the clinical role, and then there's a lot of regulatory and administrative role, making sure that we're doing everything based on the laws and the organizations that oversee this work in this country. There's a teaching role and a mentoring role, either with people who want to come into the field or all of the researchers out here, working with these animals that need some training or need some guidance or help on designing their protocols just to make sure that it's being done with the best, welfare and care for the animals. And then the final role that we're basically trained is that research is part of our career. And as a matter of fact, you can't sit for our board exam without having a first author publication and a hypothesis-driven paper, peer-reviewed. So it's supposed to be a core part of our role. But a lot of us kind of get wrapped up into the other three legs of the table, so to speak, and don't get a lot of opportunities to really spend time in that research arena. So when I was invited in to participate in the MMPC grant at U of M, it gave me really some protected time even to really jump back into actually being a researcher and thinking about designing studies and thinking about questions that we could answer and that I could be a part of. And I really enjoy that. I really like it. And I miss it when you spend too many hours just reviewing protocols and everything else. So it's been really positive for me to get back into an area where I'm sitting with a bunch of experts in metabolic phenotyping and in metabolic disease, and getting to brainstorm what we're going to do next and what we can offer and how we can participate in that.
Would you say that your experience with the MMPC, like, it has been super collaborative?
Definitely within my own MMPC Live group here at U of M, but then also the structure of the overall program, where we are meeting monthly with all the other centers, having the annual meeting where we all get together and kind of see each other's places and operations. And then also each of the MMPC centers has a veterinarian on their grant. It's part of the structure of the funding, and the 4 MMPC veterinarians also meet regularly to make sure that we, between the 4 centers, are, trying to see where we are, being consistent, and making sure that, the setup, understanding where the setups are different for the animals at each of the 4 centers, and how that might play a role if someone is using one center to do a similar study from someone using, a different center for the same study. So I would say it's been very collaborative, throughout both the internal and the larger network.
Amazing. What's one thing you've done in your career that your younger self would be proud of?
I think my younger self would be proud of quite a lot of what I've done at this point, actually, but this isn't really related to the MMPC, but the rest of my role here at ULAM. In March of 2020, a time that nothing else was happening in the world, approximately 6 years ago from this very moment, I made the decision to take a leadership role on in my department, and I'm the director for clinical services here, so I oversee all of the clinical work, all of the care of the animals that happens at University of Michigan. I oversee all of the teams that provide that care, basically, and that includes the veterinarians and the vet techs and the veterinary residents. And through the next few years, it got really hard during the Great Resignation, so to speak. We lost probably half of our vet tech team in the space of 6 months. And I was able to really pull our veterinary team together to make sure that we all, in a positive way, worked together to make sure that the animals were still getting exactly the excellent care that they are supposed to be getting, and that everybody was getting the attention they needed, even though we were short, and to keep that going in a way that people felt they were really contributing and making a difference to the team and to the animals, even though we were all a little bit burned out at the same time, or maybe a lot burned out at the same time. Everybody was so short, and it was really tough, but we really were a better team on the other side of it, like from the veterinarians on down. And I am actually really proud of just leading that and getting us through that time, with everybody still liking me at the end of it,
You chose obviously such an interesting time to take on such a huge role. Would you say that was kind of your calculated risk that you took?
Yeah, it was. I did my postdoctoral fellowship, my residency training here at U of M as well. I've basically spent my whole life leaving U of M and coming back for different phases of my career. Mm-hmm. I don't have any plans on leaving again at this point. But University of Michigan, we had one of the very first lab animal medicine programs in the country. It started in the 60s. The one of the people who ran our department at that time kind of helped create our field as a whole and the specialty as a whole. So there's a history here of basically of this program creating leaders and directors. And you kind of come into the residency here, and they're not saying you're going to go out and definitely going to be a director, but a lot of the directors across the country to lab animal programs have come out of our program. And so going through it, I just always was like, well, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. I need to keep on working to stepping up. Honestly, at no point ever did I consider that wouldn't be my trajectory. Now, did I know what March of 2020 to May of 2023 was going to look like? No. and I was already, all of it was happening at the same time. So I didn't really know that I was going to take this role in such a an uncertain time for all of us, but I did know that I was going to go for this role when I had the opportunity. I had only been on faculty here for years when the opportunity came up, and it probably, it may have been it could have been a little early for some folks, but I just went for it, and they were happy to have me in the role. So I had already been running the germ-free core for a few years, so they knew I could do some of the practical parts of it. But yeah, I knew that's where I was going. The problem is once you actually get to that highest tier, and that's all you've been doing since age 18 onwards, now you're like, what do I do now? What's next? I guess I'll go be on an MMPC grant. Let's see what that's like. So, yeah.
How do you gauge success in this field as a woman?
I don't gauge success by publications or grants or dollars or even peer, accolades. I will say also that veterinary medicine is a little bit different because we actually are mostly women, and we've been mostly women for a long time. In my class of 113 students in vet school, we had 11 men, and we had 100 women. It is overrepresented. Okay. But when you get out into lab animal, the directors and the leaders in my field are still mostly men. Even it's just kind of hasn't trickled. It's starting to shift now because of the shift in those demographics in vet school. But, for the most part, it's mostly men that are, the directors of the departments. Mm-hmm. I gauge my success in my ability to lift people up in their roles further. I just want to have like a happy life with a good work-life burden, with a good work-life balance, and be able to take care of my family and not be stressed out all the time.
Right.
It's such a non, professional success answer, but that's what's important to me. And it's important to me that all of the veterinarians that come through the training program that I'm, mentoring and coaching and training, and the staff that I oversee directly in the germ-free core, and also the staff that I oversee directly in the vet techs, that this place and this job and this work is healthy for them and is good for them, and it's what they need. And if it's not what they need, then I support them in whatever decisions they need to make, and that's really what I thrive on in this field, is trying to make this a better place for the people that I work with. So I am no more important than any other person, and in many ways they are doing all of the work, and I'm just the one trying to cheer them on up here. So and probably part of that was, built into me through those years of the pandemic when we just had people leaving and leaving and leaving.
Right.
So people not leaving is how I gauge some success for me.
And that's ultimately what you're trying to do, make an impact on those who are coming after you. And thank you for giving insight on the field of veterinary medicine as well. I did not know that, but that's so cool. Question is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger, or no, not your younger self. I mean, I guess it could be your younger self, but also just a young woman in STEM today.
I guess my piece of advice for young women in STEM today is, you really get my philosophy in this interview, I guess, but basically you don't have to take being treated poorly in any way whatsoever at all. People need you, people want you, your skills are important. Just walk away from situations where there's any kind of poor treatment whatsoever. You don't know
where you were wanted, seen, and heard.
Yeah.
And I thank you so much, Dr. Kennedy, for just taking the time to share your story a little bit. You are a woman, and you are making history in your own right. That concludes our Women's History Month conversation. So thank you.